Hi folks, thank you for joining us on Who Moved the Market. Well, the market's moving in only one direction today, and that's decisively down. However, we've picked out two stocks for you that are actually moving because of certain announcements with respect to their leadership. Now, these two stocks are at the opposite ends of the spectrum on the Nifty. Tech Mahindra going up 7.5% up in a market like this, and IndusInd Bank, which is moving down over 6%, and it is the weakest performing stock on the index. So let's talk about these appointments that have happened at both of these institutions and what impact they can perhaps have on the business. And to help me do that, I have with me Latha, who's going to take us through all the ongoings at IndusInd Bank with respect to Mr. Sumant Kathpalia's reappointment. And Reema, of course, will give us the Tech Mahindra story. Thank you very much, ladies, for being with us this afternoon. So, Reema, since we're in a down market, we're holding on to any green, any good news. So, let's start with actually Tech Mahindra. You tell us, this is something that the market had been waiting for the longest time, to know who will be the new MD and CEO. And now we have a name, Mohit Joshi.
Absolutely. And the street likes the name. So one reason why the stock is higher is because it ends months of speculation, right? The uncertainty surrounding the leadership change. And number two is they like the name. So the person who's going to be the new CEO and MD of Tech Mahindra, and he's currently the designate, is Mohit Joshi. He was earlier with Infosys, more than 2 decades of experience. He was the president of Infosys, BFSI and healthcare. BFSI is the largest vertical, right, for any IT company, more than 30% of their revenues. Plus, he was given additional charge of healthcare. Not just that, he was also in charge of leading sales, operations, and transformation. And he also had the executive responsibility for the large deals. He was one of the key players. So under the CEO, there are precedents. Right? And he was one of the presidents. The other president was Ravi Kumar, who left for Cognizant. So now there is a bit of a gaping hole in that hierarchy. So the street likes the name Mohit Joshi, strong credentials, strong pedigree. So amongst all the names, I think there's a clear thumbs up given to the choice.
Okay, so the street definitely seeing this as a good catch. Now, I'm just going to go back to a conversation that you and I were having with Mr. C.P. Gurnani, right, about the company's next trajectory, strategic direction. That is when they had made their intent very clear on the products and platforms business. So now that we have the new man in, what would be the immediate task, so to speak, for Mohit Joshi?
Well, the immediate task is going to be reversing and catching up on growth. Now, Tech Mahindra has underperformed peers on revenue and on margins. Now, you know, the revenue growth for Tech Mahindra has not, except in last year where everything moved up on a high base. But if you look at a CAGR, it's underperformed in fee TCS. So that's point number one. Secondly, its margins are about 14-15%. Versus Infi TCS, whose margins are above 20%. Even HCL Tech's margins are 19-20%. Even Wipro's are. Except that in the last couple of quarters, Wipro's margins have taken a decisive downturn. So basically, TechM has underperformed peers. It needs to catch up. It needs to reverse. Now, for this to take place, the company needs to make a lot of investments. So the thinking is that Mohit Joshi may require to bring about the structural change. He will need to make investments which could be margin dilutive. The other risk that you need to bear in mind is that in any leadership change, there could be attrition. There were some internal candidates who must have been evaluated. They must have been in the fray. They could be disappointed. They could leave. Their teams could leave. So there could be some attrition. If he wants to boost the morale of the employees, some are saying maybe he will give a good price hike, a wage hike this time, which could again be margin dilutive. So there are certain risks. But just one more point about the strategy, since you brought that word. Now, TechM, as we knew it, and Latha, you would also know, right, always had a telecom focus because it took over from British Telecom. But now they've slowly also expanding into other regions. Why is that Tech Mahindra has underperformed peers in terms of growth? It's because the fastest growing segment was BFSI.
And that was missing in their portfolio.
It was a very small percentage, right? So that's why, because the legacy issues, Tech Mahindra's exposure to the other verticals has been lesser than peers, which is one of the reasons why over the last so many years it's underperformed. Now, he is an enterprise guy. Basically, by enterprise, we mean non-communication, right? In TechM's parlance and the language that they use, the non-communication vertical is called enterprise. Okay, not the typical enterprise meaning of, you know, a large corporate, but here it means a non-communication focus. This guy is a non-communications guy. He's never done communication. So he's going to be focused on growing the other piece of the business. And that is also the change in strategy. This choice has been liked by the street.
So that clearly gives you a sense of the direction that Tech Mahindra is taking, right? Just the choice of the candidate. The margins now for Tech Mahindra itself, it's been a good journey. I mean, they're now approaching 15% plus, and it's been a steady climb from the days of 12%. But there is still a huge distance away from the others, as you mentioned. So does the street feel that this margin gap can actually be bridged, or can at least be narrowed perhaps in the near future?
No, it doesn't happen, right? It's a big company. Its revenues is what, $6-7 billion. It's not going to be easy to turn around such a large ship and improve the profitability metrics. There is a reason why Infi TCS commands a premium on the deals that it acquires, right? It offers a full suite of services, and therefore they can extract efficiencies once you win a deal. So in that context, that's also the reason why Wipro's and HCL's margins are lower than Infi TCS, and therefore TechM is also even one notch lower. It's not easy to catch up, and plus this is a medium term, if it has to work out, it's not going to happen tomorrow.
It's a long haul.
It's a long haul, the next 2 to 3 years.
There have been magical leaderships in the past. So
you
can
never
hope that
know.
it can bridge the gap, maybe not completely overturn the, the order.
All right, Reema, thank you very much for explaining all the changes at Tech Mahindra, and we're going to watch out for the strategic direction the company takes under the new leadership. So thank you very much for that, which now brings me to the other, but actually it's not a change, it's a continuation of the same gentleman, Mr. Sumant Kathpalia.
Only the street would have liked more.
Yes, but such a severe reaction. I mean, 6% down. Explain to us, and Latha, you flagged off the story, of course, well ahead of the curve, that he's likely to get an extension. So what is the disappointment with 2 years versus 3 years?
Well, actually, it is the unfamiliarity and the unpreparedness. The Reserve Bank, for the majority, absolute majority of its cases, either gives a 1 year or a 3 year extension. A 1 year extension is either because they want the current CEO to find the successor. It's a message to the board. That happened in RBL's case. Or it is a message that something is not up to our expectations, so please set that right. That happened perhaps in a federal bank's case, where first he got a 1 year and then he got a longer extension. So probably they just wanted some course correction. Now, there have been many instances of 3 years where the bank has been running, and it's running as well as it ran previously, so a 3 year extension is given. 2 years is something one, is trying to fit in what exactly the Reserve Bank is saying. Clearly, they are not disappointed. Otherwise, they could have done 1 year. So it's to that extent positive. But it would have been much better if it were 3, because that would be as the board wanted. Now it is falling short of the board ask. And therefore, that means we would like you to do a little better than you have done. That explains perhaps the disappointment.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings me back to some of the issues that we were debating just before this clarity came from the Reserve Bank. I remember you talking about, the mutual fund, the microfinance issues that IndusInd Bank was grappling with. Could that perhaps be playing on maybe the regulator and the street's mind? And if I could ask a broader question, what next for Mr. Kathpalia now that he has the 2 years ahead of him?
You see, banking's best 2 years were 2021 and 2022. I mean, it was great. It was a rise. First, there was easy liquidity, and then there was protection for the weak because of all the SOPs given by the Reserve Bank. The CGT, MSE for protecting the smaller MSMEs.
And
everything
large
went good.
Legacy NPAs were sorting out. I mean,
were already sorted out. So credit cost
that.
was falling. Everything was going good. The poison was out, and things were positive in terms of plentiful liquidity. And in a rising interest rate scenario, initially banks actually make more money because you reprice loans faster. Depositors take a little longer. There is lethargy, and there was ample liquidity. So you didn't need to push up deposits.
So margins were
that best
expanding.
period is over. Okay. Now, for all banks, it's going to be a fight to maintain margins. Most of them will either maintain, some may even start peaking off. Therefore, that will be the first big fight for IndusInd. And unlike SBI, you don't command deposits. You have to fight from the SBIs of the world. So you have to pay a little more. Margins could to that extent be difficult. And then the other problem that you said, the MFI, the issue, there was this charge of evergreening by the whistleblower. So probably the Reserve Bank is also ticking off for that. You have to manage it better. Inherently, MFI is a high-risk, high-return portfolio. So the fact that that is one of your bread earners will also be always a challenge. CV, another big earner for IndusInd, is a cyclical business. It's doing well now. And anything cyclical also turns.
Will have a down.
So if that turns, then that could be another challenge.
Well, just for the benefit of our viewers, I just want to put out some of the targets. And the targets are very wide-ranging on the street. One reason that perhaps a lot of people got a little spooked today is because of this JP Morgan call. They came out downgrading the stock to a neutral. And their target price has been slashed to about 1,060. It used to be 1,400. So it's straight away, slashing of the target there. That took people by surprise. But then a lot of others are all at 1,450, 1,500. Jefferies is at 1,550. Macquarie is at 1,510. Citi is at 1,420. Morgan Stanley is at 1,525. So it's not like there's an across-the-board shaving of targets. JP Morgan was an outlier with a very, very strong call this morning. Finally, Latha, before we wrap this up, it also tells us, right, that key executive appointments or reappointments end up becoming a bit of an event, at least for the market or for the stock. And it seems this year we have our calendar full because we have a couple of smaller names. I think we'll just get the graphics up. City Union Bank.
AU Finance.
AU Finance.
That's the one that's coming up. And,
that's the one. And even the bigger banks. I mean, SBI, ICICI Bank. Of course, those are, I think, the ones the market is very, very clear about, that there should be no issues. But, is it likely to be an interesting season?
No, I think all leadership changes are big events. I mean, would you not agree that it's a very big ingredient in any company?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not surprised that it is an event. It always has been that way. It's just that in banking, one needs a little bit of certainty because it's such a moving piece in terms of interest rates, in terms of the state of the economy, the global economy, and technology above all. So if someone has to boldly make investments, he needs to have a runway. And maybe that's why the 2 years for Sumant should be seen as more positive. At least some important, a lot can be done in 2 years. It's not a small term.
In banking, I think is one such business where as much as you have technology, the basic banking acumen is so important. And I'll end with sort of talking about a tweet that I saw yesterday in the flood of tweets on SVB, etc. There was a US senator who commented saying that, it's too easy to blame the Fed, saying you raised rates too quickly. It's the banker's job to deal with these, quick changes. So perhaps we cannot underplay or underestimate the importance of the right banking decisions.
Absolutely. And just a final point, Sumant had also said that he wants to get into affordable housing.
Okay.
Housing is going to be one difficult terrain hereafter for all banks. And why? Because HDFC is merging into HDFC Bank. They were so good even without the bank. I mean, they dominated the housing space. Now with cheap funds from the banking unit, it's going to be a formidable competition. So yes, the challenges are always there.
Okay, it promises to keep the playing field extremely interesting. Thank you very much, Latha and Reema, for joining in and helping us make sense of some of these important announcements with respect to leadership at two big nifty companies. Well, with that, we will take your leave. That's it on this edition of Who Moved the Markets. But remember, we see you around 2 o'clock every afternoon. So see you again tomorrow.